Today's guest is Monica Cox, who is a top holistic functional fertility coach and infertility warrior. She supports women in finding the root cause of their fertility issues and becoming the conscious mother they were born to be. She herself has dealt with years of unexplained fertility, failed IVFs, and survived several miscarriages before becoming an IVF mom and getting pregnant naturally, even though the doctor said that there was nothing she could do to improve her situation. So, Monica, thank you very much for coming on. How are you doing today?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm wonderful, thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this with you. I mean, even just from the short conversation we've had off air before recording, it seems like we're very much aligned with regards to how we look at we define as like root causes, right? Like your
hmm
clients come at you with a surface level problem, and then as I always say on this podcast, like it's hard to see the building when you're standing on the balcony, right? So having
Yeah.
that outside perspective for somebody to like really scan and see the big picture and see exactly the things that you're missing, just right off the bat I was like, yeah, we totally align with that. We're just have two different vehicles for exploring it. So I'd love for you to then just break down how you got to doing what you're doing, beyond what was in the bio, and how you're doing all the stuff that you're doing now.
Yeah, so it was a personal story, 27 years old, fit, healthy, young, and just couldn't get pregnant. And, the answer was IVF. And when that was a shambles, and they said, you have low A quality, there's nothing you can do, just continue with medical treatment. There was a very strong present in that room saying that's BS, don't listen. And I had no guidance, no knowledge of mental health, emotional health, physical health, diet, because I was fit and healthy, or at least I thought I was. I was the norm, right? I was high achieving, and we traveled and we hung out with friends. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't overweight. I didn't have a diagnosis of, any medical condition. So that's what sent me on my journey. And it was pretty long. I mean, Instagram wasn't even invented at the time. So you didn't really have access like you do nowadays, especially relating to fertility. And so I just started piecing it together slowly but surely. And I think my consistency paid off, right? I didn't need, double blind medical studies or, peer reviewed research on this. I was just willing to kind of follow my intuition, which I didn't know was a thing at the time. But I can look back very clearly on my journey. And every time I listened, I quote unquote succeeded. And every time I didn't fail, but the journey became more expensive, a lot more heartache, things like that. So when I got pregnant naturally, I had already trained in functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I thought I was going to help children because that's what I did for 20 years. I was an early educator with, things like with ADHD and autism and really improve their health. And I ironically just didn't want to work with parents anymore. I mean, it's hard enough to kind of see the light yourself and to try to convince another human being for their child. And I know that's maybe really harsh to say because most people think like a parent would do anything for their children, but that I wasn't seeing that, like simple things like cut out gluten or processed foods or get to bed or do A, B, and C. They're just like, oh, well, there's not that much research in it. It's not going to be that. I was like, okay. I was like, but yeah, my natural pregnancy just led me to actually be really pissed off that it was doable, that there were answers out there, and not really anyone in the medical field was giving this advice. It's just all about treatment, not prevention or care. And then that's when I started diving into the coaching. But to be honest, I had two young boys, so I dived more into motherhood for a few years. And that's kind of when the deep night of the soul really started happening because I had become quote unquote conscious of choices and awareness and diet and lifestyle and how mindset affects your life. My kids were rapidly becoming huge mirrors for me. And I just didn't understand after so many years of infertility why I was like getting triggered the way I was, in so many years of early education. I thought parenthood was going to be a breeze. And then and I had healthy babies. I didn't have any complications that way, but their personalities and their behavior, like no one warned you for that, especially my second son. He was here to make me grow in ways I didn't know I needed to grow. And then when I started tapping into entrepreneurship, that was another rude awakening of, you've got some really deep beliefs that are literally blocking you from becoming quote unquote successful, which I don't mean just like financially, but just being happy in the business as well. And I learned that I was doing it for worthiness, to prove my worthiness. And that's not what I wanted. So, that's why I'm here. I'm very open to just, like getting rid of the BS. Like I'm done. I'm 41. Like I just want a quicker road. Now you have this knowledge, right? And I feel like the more knowledge you build on, it's like, okay, now you can really fast track yourself to exactly where you want to be. And yeah, there's still things that I kind of question of like, am I here? Am I doing the right things? I feel like I'm doing the right things. Why is it not, maybe the outer reality of, the finances? Why is it up and down so much? Where I don't feel like I'm changing anything month to month, right? Like I'm very consistent. I've been consistent for a few years now. I feel like I found my voice now. So it's kind of like, what's missing? And is that even a question I should be asking anymore? Like, is there anything missing? Or am I conditioned to always think that I have to keep going and doing?
Beautiful. Well, I mean, you couldn't have set up a better segue for me in in terms of
You're
transitioning to
welcome.
what we're about here. So, A, thank you for that. So B, why don't we start with your last question of like, is there something missing? Right. So how would you answer that for yourself?
Yeah. Oh, there he is. There's my son. Um, is there something missing? No, I guess there's not. If I'm really honest, there isn't anything missing. And I think sometimes you look at your external. Lucken, can you please go see her? Where's your father? This always happens.
That's
Sorry,
okay.
hold on.
Perfect timing, you know. And as Monica does what she needs to do, I'm just gonna fill the void here. But
No, no, no.
this is the reality of how these situations work, and that's why I want to keep them recorded.
So,
Yeah, I was just filling the air while you were doing your things. It's all good, but I was saying like this is like it's such a perfect thing to have happen because here's you describing your journey, here's you describing your son and the things he has to teach you. And obviously I don't know if that was a specific boy that you were referring to,
yeah,
but it's like
that's him.
let's say okay, perfect, right? So here he is coming again at your moment of doing this. So I just thought it was a very interesting synchronicity for that to happen. But yeah,
Yeah,
floor is back onto you with regards to like okay, that question of like what is missing or is anything missing?
yeah. Um, so yeah, I guess if you yeah, going there is probably a perfect spot. He's gonna start school in August. And it's really hard to find a spot for care where I live that isn't full time. And I don't want him full time. I want to work part time. I waited 8 years to have him, but I also um, need this business in my life. I've done deep soul searching of whether or not I should be doing this. And the answer is yes, I should be doing this. It is one of the reasons I'm on this planet. And even if it's just as a part-time opportunity right now until my kids are a little bit older, it needs to happen in my life. It gives me joy in ways that other things don't, right? And that's okay as a mom. And that was a big thing to answer. But yeah, it's that balance of um am I holding myself back because I'm always like, okay, my son's still there. He's not in care. I can't just completely tune in to what I'm doing. And am I getting pulled both ways and then not being present for either of them?
Okay. So again, how would you answer that question for yourself? Are you being pulled in different directions?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think every mother is. And there's never the right balance. Everyone's balance looks completely different. But how do you deal with that when you're in a transition of um not having quote unquote your perfect ideal setup, right? Whether that be full-time care, part-time care, or being stay home and working in between naps and things like that. So yeah, definitely pulled um between both for sure.
Okay. So in that case, are you clear on what you actually want?
No, like
Okay.
absolutely not. Like I can like really say that because uh yeah, I know that I want him in this specific scenario, 2, 3 days a week from this time to this time. But in my head, I keep saying that's impossible because I've looked and it's not here. And maybe I am still blocking that. And then I think, oh, well, it's only 7 more months, we'll get through it. Just like, so that's no, you're right. Absolutely not clear at all.
Okay, fair enough. So great awareness. So okay, you mentioned okay, I want him in this specific scenario 2 to 3 times per week. So can you just clarify what that actually means? Like you're talking about like in some sort of care or somebody else is taking care of him two
Yeah,
to three
like
times per week?
yeah, like there's just a designated place that he goes that I'm happy that he goes and he's having fun and he's safe. And he's not in and out of this room, or mommy has to just do this email real quick. It's like I can just zone into my work, pick him up, and then be present with him. But yeah, I have really high standards. But even if those standards were a little bit lower, it's incredibly hard, or like, yeah, and here's maybe my block, impossible to find what I want for him.
Okay. And in that case, it seems like you do actually know what you want. Like I want him to be somewhere else for 2 to 3 days per week so that those 2 to 3 days per week I can feel secure that he's safe, he's taken care of, and that's my time to focus on my business and do the other things that contribute to my soul growth and my business growth. So before we go on, like, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So now there's this whole thing of, well, I don't actually know what I want, but then when I dig deeper, I kind of do know the outcome that I want. But to get that outcome, I actually have impossibly high standards that nobody can actually meet. So then we go back to, well, maybe I just don't know what I want and I should like do more of whatever to figure that out.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So what
Yeah.
comes up for you when I reflect that back?
I feel it's like just I'm blocking myself. Like you do know what you want, but you're putting this made up limitation that the care for him doesn't exist. Or of course it exists. I just have to create that in my imagination and it will come.
Fair. And what if that wasn't about creating the situation that could take care of him, but what if it was actually a protective mechanism?
Yeah, like you mean that I'm not creating it because I'm protecting myself, or
Possibly. And this is kind of the part that I'm inviting you to explore because like your words were, I have an impossible standard. I have a really high standards and impossible to find something for him.
yeah,
From the outside looking in, what I'm hearing is I need to find a replacement for me,
yeah,
which is impossible because you're his mom, and no caretaker, whether it's, your own family member, is ever going to be able to replace you. So right off the bat, it's kind of like, well, you've lost before you've started.
Yeah.
So the reason why, okay, so number one, does that resonate?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
it does. So if that resonates, and the reason why I'm saying maybe it's not about creating the standards, but it's about a protective mechanism, that, like, if I set impossible standards, I never have to let go because nobody
Yeah.
can meet those standards. So the safety is in the latching on and like, no, I got to hold on. I got to hold on to this little boy. Nobody can take care of him. Like, I'm going to take care of him. And it's just like nothing exists that could possibly meet his needs the way that I can meet his needs, which, like, what makes it tricky is like, it's true. Like you're absolutely right that that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But now it comes down to, what benefit do you get from setting impossible standards that can never be met?
Yeah, zero. Like absolutely none.
Well, is that really true? Because you do get to keep them in your vicinity. You do get to be the one that meets those impossible standards. You do get to keep him close. Like, those are all
Yeah.
benefits that you get to experience by not letting him go.
Yeah, but I don't need it 24/7.
Okay. So then the inverse of that is, what benefit do you get from not creating the 2 to 3 days per week of freedom to work on your business?
Um, I don't feel like I get any benefit if I don't get that freedom,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't, because I know it's a part of my life and who I am, and it is my creativity outside of motherhood, because obviously motherhood is another form of creativity. Right now, I don't feel like that situation is beneficial for me. Like just going back to like being pulled apart, right? Like I don't feel like I'm present in either situation.
Mm-hmm. Fair. So are you open to exploring that further and seeing, what
Yeah.
else might be there? Okay. So if you did have 3 days per week of uninterrupted time to work on your business, and that began to yield more consistent success and growth, what would that mean for your relationship with your son and your family?
Okay, so just more freedom for us. We love to travel. We love to, we're not homebodies, so yeah, the freedom to yeah, okay, so there's just one example. My husband flies for Hawaiian Airlines. We're very, very fortunate that we get free standby tickets pretty much anywhere in the world. Flying standby is really rough with two kids. Packing, getting to the airport, being on like, oh, are we going to make the plane? Are we not going to make the plane? Not going when we want to go. So, for me, having extra money on top of my husband's salary is like, I'm not going to think twice about this trip. We're buying 4 first class seats in the story, right? So that money just allows the freedom for us to really truly live the life that we want, instead of kind of being on this schedule of if the plane's full or not full.
Okay. So one benefit is just the options, right? Like the more
Yeah.
money equals more options for more convenience, for more comfort, for more experiences,
Yes.
which absolutely makes sense. It's a beautiful vision. In order to achieve that vision, you would have to let go of your son for 3 days a week.
Hmm.
And what comes up for you when you think of that?
Um, Probably childhood stuff for me, right? So my parents were yeah, full-time workers, very lower middle class, so they had to work to just survive, right? So we're not talking about first class seats. We're talking about rent and food and clothes. Um and yeah, we were in care morning, evenings, so like throughout the whole day. So I think that's the yeah, that's where the block is.
Okay. So what's coming up for you right now?
So yeah, I guess it's just that like um the inner child stuff of, I guess you're just making up, for that time that you didn't have with your parents, or that you were like very much always in care, not wanting that for your child. Finding a better balance of me being me, Monica Cox, who does the things that she wants to do, and then me being the mom, um, just having a better balance of that. And so, yeah, from that perspective, it's just that kind of like hurt of like, well, am I doing what my parents did out of necessity, right? Like, it's not, they had to do what they had to do, but, making sure that I do better for my children.
Absolutely. So, number one, I just want to acknowledge you for allowing yourself to go there, right? Like we've gone from like nothing's wrong to this well of emotion that, wanted to surface, and you allowed yourself to go there. You didn't avoid it. You held space for it as, these questions kept going your way. So, number one, I just want to acknowledge you for that. And number two, bring it back to the kind of question that started this whole thing, which is like, okay, well, what benefit are you getting from not letting go of your child into care, right? What you're getting is you're holding on to the control, ensuring by setting these impossible standards that no caretaker can actually meet, is that you're holding on and never allowing your child to have the experience that you went through. That I'm going to, in some ways abandon my child like I felt abandoned because of work. So if I can hold on to him and neglect my work, he's never going to have to repeat that experience. So what lands for you from that?
Yeah, like 100%. I think the thing for me is that when I have him at home, it's not that I necessarily neglect my work though. So it's like he sees me on the computer, he sees me doing an Instagram post or recording a TikTok, and I feel like I'm very conscious of that's not necessarily any better. Right? Like, just because I'm here in the house doesn't mean I'm doing better. And so that's more of the balance that I want, is that I want to be present for the both of them, or yeah, for both situations. Um, and so it's almost that, what's coming up right now is that forgiveness, um, and my inner child giving that forgiveness to my parents and knowing that that's not my life. I've literally, my children have been with me more presently and engaged and doing things than, and he's going to be 5 in March, than I ever had my whole childhood with my family, my parents. So, and giving, yeah, like, I guess that's where it is that inner child forgiveness area, because obviously she's still really hurt and feels abandoned.
So again, great awareness. And I know this is not your first foray into diving into inner work because you wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to make those connections. So again, I just want to acknowledge you for that and really just reflect back to you. Yes, the forgiveness is important. Yes, reconnecting with your inner child is important. All of that is going to be part of your healing. What I'm inviting you to consider is, if you zoom out, the bit you described at the beginning with regards to these inconsistent months, like, well, I'm kind of consistent. I'm, making TikToks, I'm making Instagrams. Some months are very high, some months are very low, but like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything different. The program and the paradigm that's operating all of that is basically a fear of success.
Yeah.
Because if you do go all in and create like result based consistencies, meaning, you know, every month I create X amount, or this is like the baseline that I never go under. You're always going to have ups and downs. It's the nature of entrepreneurship, but it's not like one month I have a 5-figure month, the next month I make $200,
Yeah.
right? That inconsistency basically means as soon as, like, if you ever read The Big Leap, right, the upper limit problem, as soon as I get to that point where success now looks and feels this way, and I've touched it, I've experienced it, it's here, I just got to keep going and do the same thing. That freak out is the freak out of that part of you that wants no repetition, no risk of repetition of living out your childhood traumas in the abandonment piece. So, in whatever fashion, we didn't get too deep into this, but whatever fashion, it self sabotages. Take some more time off. He needs more attention, right? Look at all of the support staff that I could get, but none of them are perfect. So, spend a lot of time wasting there. Like whatever the pattern, surface level pattern ends up being, it's reflective of, if I do end up with consistency, if I do end up with more revenue, that means more responsibility, which means a requirement to fulfill on more clients, which means a requirement to continue building this business, which means a requirement to be less present for my kids. So it accepts a standard of like, well, I'm kind of half present when I'm making TikToks, even though they're here. But like the result of that is this hamster wheel of limbo of just like, well, I can't really move forward because on a subconscious emotional level, this is what I've decided is okay.
Yeah.
So I know that was a lot thrown your way. So what's landing for you?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's absolutely true. It's something that I think of all the time of like, if I explode, quote unquote, and that doesn't mean like viral on Instagram. It's like if I'm consistently bringing in more clients one to one or in my coaching program, or, even, a big dream of mine is being paid for my podcast and having, a really big platform in that way. Yeah, it would be less time away from my family. Absolutely. Because that's the truth, right? Like it's just, there is a portion of that. And I think on the opposite end of like not getting care, um, it's up until now been really hard for me to find the right staff in my business to do the things that I don't need to do. So, so I think it's been on both ends of that. Yeah, definitely. 100%.
Right. So now we're getting into the ripple effects of this pattern where busyness equals safety,
Mm-hmm.
or put a different way, control equals safety, right?
Yeah.
If I can never find the right person to outsource work to, means I get to, like, I have to be the one to do it all, which means I'm the limiter to my growth, which means I'm likely not going to grow past where I'm at right now, because support means growth. Proper support means proper growth,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm going to sabotage how I create, my SOPs and all of my, delegation work and systems and operations. It means I'm going to hire the wrong person, whether that happens energetically or like you actually self-sabotage hiring the right person, right? How you actually
Mm-hmm.
end up delegating is probably going to be muddled as well, because the part that always goes first, right, is going to be your safety part. That
Yeah.
part's like, no, 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 no. Like, we're not growing. Nobody can take care of your kid like you can take care of. Nobody can do your business like you can take care of your business. Like, stay here, do this, do not grow. Right. That
Yeah.
is the lens through which all of your choices end up being made, whether consciously or unconsciously. So, really, for you, right, even look at how we started this whole conversation. It's like, I don't really know if I have a problem. It's all good. Yeah, absolutely. To that emotional, subconscious, wounded part of you, this is ideal.
Yeah.
Like it's not concerned about what the ultimate vision of I'm fully present with my kids, have a thriving business, and am able to do all the things that I want to do. It doesn't care about what that vision could actually be like. It's probably blocking you from even thinking and really using your imagination of what that could look like. Because getting there, as far as its emotional logic is concerned, totally not cool.
Yeah.
Right. So, again, what lands for you there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's totally true. And it's really like starting to show myself that it is safe. And say the word safe and safety has come up quite a lot in my journey and subconscious mind work and inner child work. So it's interesting that it's coming up again, um, and exploring that of not feeling safe and having, I guess it just comes to, um, you know, my subconscious mind, or let's inner child or my childhood, for the first, like, I don't know, like 13 years, there was no safety, right? And so I see why. And I've always been, I can do it myself. I don't need help. You know, I'm the big girl. And that's just like exactly what I was set up to believe.
Correct. And then just to kind of allow yourself to zoom out a little bit, how is that creating problems within your business, in your own words?
Yeah. I mean, the problems is that I, yeah, it scares me to let other people do anything in my business. And it scares me to let anyone. I have two kids. I have a 7-year-old in first grade, and they're not doing a good enough job. It's just so on both ends. And as much as I feel like I've let go and released and been doing this work, this is just like another amazing reminder that it is like an onion journey, right? Like, okay, yeah, maybe I've pulled back the first like few layers, but you still got to keep going and tunneling. I don't know what is in the core of this onion, but hopefully it smells a little bit better. But yeah, definitely.
And I think to just add some nuance to that, because I fundamentally agree with you. Maybe it's not even like I got to get to the core and then I'll be fixed and then I'll be good.
Yeah.
It's more these patterns and these woundings that have followed me for decades, stemming from, those early, very important years. I have done a lot of work and a lot of healing around them. It's just within the context of my business, that's where I haven't addressed them.
Yeah.
Right. And the only reason I point that out is we get into these judgment cycles like, well, I'm not at the core yet. I haven't fixed myself fully. Why am I still broken? You're not. It's just where your business wants to go, what wants to be emerged to be expressed from you through the vehicle of the business and the people that you serve and how you serve them. It requires a level of consciousness that needs you to let go of these aspects as they are showing up in your business.
Yeah.
And even though we're saying the same thing, I just wanted to point it out because that perspective makes it easier to bypass the judgment. It's like, okay, it's just, I have dealt with this. I haven't dealt with it in my business. Now is the
Hmm.
time to do that versus, oh, why am I so broken? Like we should get into that victim
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah.
So
And I don't feel that way. Like, in all honesty, I just feel like, oh, here we go again. Like, but that's how I feel like every time I unearth something, which is like refreshing and great. And I'm super excited. But at the same time, as anyone knows, when you're going through this journey, yeah, I don't believe there's necessarily this end goal that I'm striving for. But I do hope that, and I know this in my journey, it does get easier, right? Like, yeah.
100%. So if I like look back through everything that, we've unpacked for this conversation, right? So there's, and I'll just kind of reflect back what's in my notes, right? So there's this pattern of control. There are these abandonment aspects of your inner child. And if the wording, like you prefer a different wording, this is just what I have in my notes. So, you can replace it. But did this inner child part of you that like doesn't want to let go and doesn't want to repeat it, I just called it the abandonment bit. So you got the control, you got the abandonment bit. All of this leads to not being able to delegate, not asking for help and support, uh, and fundamentally the fear of success, the fear of growth, all those things. Like those are the five main things that I've kind of outlined for you from this conversation. So before I ask the next question, like, do those resonate with you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who or what would you be without those limitations?
Um, what would I be? To be honest, I feel free. Like I would feel really free without those limitations. I am in a very abundant situation already. So I'm not seeking a bigger house or, even just a roof over my head, let's say. I'm not seeking those things. I guess what I'm seeking is that freedom, that lightness that you feel, when you make a big breakthrough, like for me, my body feels really light. And I can tell that I'm not necessarily quote unquote where I want to be, like, and that's not perfection or the end of the journey when my body still is feeling heavy. And so that's why I'm always willing to explore and have these types of vulnerable conversations, because it's like I don't feel that lightness and that freedom that I know my soul is seeking.
Got it. And if you had that lightness and that freedom, what kind of business would you create?
Um, Well, to be honest, I feel like I already have my dream business, right? Like I love podcasting. I love connecting with people. I love connecting with clients and finding, their missing pieces. I have an amazing course. I have a one-to-one, client capability. I have my dream business. Like it's already there. Um, so it's really now just stepping out of my own way and letting it become what I have already built.
Beautiful. So it's for you, like what really lights you up is less about finding more like profit in solving these feast and famine cycles. It's more about the subjective profit, more fulfillment, more of a sense of freedom, more lightness in my business, more joy, right? More peace of
Yeah,
mind that I'm not sacrificing one way or the other. It's basically it's the fulfillment profit that you'd be seeking.
exactly. And I think because I truly believe that when I have that, the abundance comes too, right? Like I know that in my soul. And with all the money mindset work I've done too, like I know that. And so yeah, exactly. That's um yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I agree with you on that. And it just goes back to that really the underlying pattern here, which is a split energy, right? I don't want what comes with success because it means sacrificing all of the woundings and the fears that I have,
Hmm.
right? So that's that split. Like I've done all the mindset work around money. I want like I'm okay to receive more of it, but then the split energy is the expense of that. The consequence of that is reliving my childhood through my kid and passing on that trauma. And I know you intellectually understand that's not true, but it's speaking to that
Yeah.
subconscious emotional part of you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. So if you can then just sum up in your own words, what are all of the head trash and emotional blocks that are creating that feast and famine cycle within your business?
Yeah, that it's the safety of the surrender, that um no one's abandoning anyone. It's safety for asking for help, it's safety for the growth aspect, and it's safety for the success. Like changing those subconscious beliefs that those are all safe to have, and that I have already broken that generational trauma. Like it's that's done. And I know that I've done that. Um, so now it's kind of going back. Like I consciously know that my 41-year-old knows that, but my 5-year-old still is, me personally, my personal inner child 5-year-old is still seeing life through that lens 100%.
And it's a beautiful way to say it too, because the adult part of you has broken that generational trauma.
Hmm.
It is still the 5-year-old that's not embodying or has caught up with where your 40-year-old has gone.
Yeah.
So that I think is the completion of that cycle, because yeah, you've done a lot of the inner work to clear some of that. Now what wants to emerge is the embodiment of that in your business to show it.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, like, if you can't let go of your kid and you can't ask for support and you can't make the space to express more of your soul's calling in your business, you kind of understand the generational trauma that you've worked through, but you don't actually know it because you
Yeah.
can't show it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's in the showing that the healing like reveals itself fully.
Yeah. Yep.
So what comes up for you then in that final reflection?
Yeah. No, it's just like I'm just so like grateful for like being able to like have the confidence to just even have these conversations, right? Like that's what I think about myself now. Like there's no way like 3 years ago that I would have been able to be like this vulnerable. And this is like a huge, huge like leap. So yeah, I'm just like super grateful for this opportunity and for you to look at my building.
Beautiful. Well, yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's also why it's wanting to merge right now, because you actually have the capacity to hold it, right? Like 3 years ago, I couldn't have even admitted this, let alone like in a public fashion.
Yeah.
Now, not only can I do that, but by creating that acceptance and awareness around it, that's the first step to beginning to actually heal it, embody it, and now show it with results. So, yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful summary for that. So, Monica, thank you very much for bringing this to the table and sharing yourself through this. So yeah, so floor is yours. Let everybody know where to find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Oh, yeah. So I'm finding fertility everywhere on the internet, podcasts, social media, website. And yeah, anyone who is seeking support for a more holistic, functional approach to getting and staying pregnant, yeah, come join the community.
Beautiful. Well, as always, we'll include those in the show notes. Monica, yeah, thank you very much for coming on, and for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.